I recently came across a video on YouTube of someone trying to reach out to me and get me to fix their Game Boy.
Hello, Elliot. I'm Eric Trong. I have two Game Boy, one that is working and one that does not working. And take a look at this broken Game Boy. Look. No screen, no sound.
Now typically I avoid doing that sort of thing, so please don't ask me to fix your stuff, but I thought I'd give this one a little go because I found the fault quite interesting and I found the video really sweet.
So, Elliot, I want you to fix my Game Boy. Restore my Game Boy.
It came with a fake copy of Pokemon Blue, which the guy claimed was faulty. We'll take a look at that a bit later, but I'll be honest, those things aren't really that recoverable once they crash. It's often the chips that have just given up in life. Putting some batteries in, you can see the screen does actually turn on. Either there's a hell of a lot of missing pixels, or there's something going wrong here, because only one line of pixels is displaying. One thing we can not hear though is the speaker. What's going wrong there? Let's plug in the game and some headphones and see if maybe it is just the speaker. And you can hear there that it is. But to get a better listen, let's plug in a game that actually works, because this one clearly wasn't booting up. We only heard the little Nintendo ding. So it's nice to know that this Game Boy is alive down there somewhere. We just need to get the screen working properly. So I'll start by taking it apart. There's Phillips screws on the back of this Game Boy. Typically it's tri-wing, but I think Phillips is a reflection of a slightly older model of Game Boy. Once we've removed those, we can unhook the front motherboard. The back looks pretty decent, which I'm really pleased with. The front, however, has definitely had someone having a go at doing something, because look at the state of those screws. Now the screws on the back of the Game Boy as well were really chewed up, so I had to use a really big screwdriver bit and was eventually able to remove all of the rounded screws and get that motherboard out. And oh my days.
Oh my god.
The problem was not a fault. The problem was a bad repair attempt. The ribbon cable was completely burnt away from the screen, so no connection was getting to that LCD screen, and this is absolutely not repairable. I mean, it would take a wizard to repair that, so we're going to need to replace the screen. So we'll remove all of the buttons and give everything a really good clean. And the other problem that the guy wanted me to try and tackle was the slightly yellowed plastic shell. Now this is a really time-consuming process, so I'm going to give that a go as well. But I was a little bit skeptical as to whether I had been slightly duped or the guy who was reaching out to me had been slightly duped, because someone at some point has had a go at repairing it and failed miserably, and then either sold it on to the poor guy who reached out to me, or he had a go at fixing it, failed, and then has sent it to me without disclosing that he actually broke a load of stuff and I'm going to have to replace it all for him free of charge because, yeah, I'm not getting paid for this. So I removed the rear motherboard, and interestingly there was a sticker which said warranty void if removed. Now that is not a sticker I've ever come across before, and I've taken apart hundreds of Game Boys, so really got no idea what's going on there at all. Going to remove the cartridge shield and the rest of the small pieces of plastic from the Game Boy, as well as the battery contacts, which in this instance were actually in really nice condition. No battery leakage is always preferable because it can really screw up the motherboard. It's very satisfying removing all of those, and you can see all of the parts that we have laid out here on the table. We're going to have to inspect each of those buttons in a little bit as well and make sure they're all okay. You can see there just how badly damaged that is. So here's another Game Boy that I had in my spare parts drawer, and this one has a front screen. So let's go ahead and plug that onto the back and put some batteries in and see if it works. And with a little bit of fiddling around with the batteries, it works really well. The shell itself and the screen lens is in really bad condition, but that's okay. I've also got some spare battery covers, so let's play around with those and see which one colour matches better. Turns out it's the first one, so I'll go ahead and give him that, as well as include the white one back as well, considering that white battery cover that was included with this is probably worth more than the Game Boy, because the white Play It Loud Game Boys were really, really rare and very expensive. So after removing the screen, which I actually had quite a bit of trouble with, and you'll see that this actually did cause me an issue later on. There's a small bit of adhesive on that screen which holds the actual glass of the LCD down to the front plastic of the shell, presumably to prevent it from sort of dropping back slightly if that was to ever happen and then let a load of dust in. So I actually broke that. So we're going to have to do some more repairs as well, which I never anticipated. Now, I'm going to dye my hair. I'm also going to bleach the Game Boy shell, which is going to make it look a lot nicer. And for this, you need this stuff right here, which is cream peroxide, 40 vol. There's loads of different ways to do it. I decided to put it in a plastic bag so that it wouldn't evaporate and leave any streaking marks, and then shove it under my UV light. But unfortunately, the plastic bag had a load of leaks in it, and it got all over the place, including my hands, and bleached my skin. So that went well. So there we go, we're going to just chuck it into the small little sandwich container box and put it in some water so that it doesn't evaporate, and then put this UV nail hardening lamp over the top. And I sort of just made a rig on my floor with some tin foil and left it there for about 4 or 5 hours. Luckily the back wasn't too bad. Now, the next thing to do was focus on all of the components of it. So I'm going to use some isopropyl alcohol and rub down the motherboard. That's going to make better button contact so that you have a more reliable button press, and also just make sure that there's more longevity with this Game Boy into the future. You can see the stuff coming off onto the Q-tip there. Also give the screen a little wipe down, and also get rid of all of the dust on the rear motherboard. There's lots of little holes for dust to get through onto the motherboard, and it's best just to remove it. Also give the cartridge port a nice clean with a toothbrush, and that's pretty much it for the cleaning. One thing we will also do is drop some isopropyl alcohol into the potentiometers so that they're really nice and smooth when you turn up the volume. Now then, I'm going to go ahead and clean all of the shell components. The back was in really good condition, as I said, and I want to leave that sticker on for him. And about 4 hours later, I took out the front half of the Game Boy and gave that a good clean in the sink too. It looks a lot better. I'm not going to do any more because it can make the plastic brittle. Some plastic just is a bit further gone than others, and this one was quite yellow. But yeah, this one looks a hell of a lot better, and I'm really pleased with it. Hopefully he will be too. After that, we can give everything a really, really nice clean. You can see that there's a little bit more gunk inside the button wells. Probably should have done this beforehand. I just haven't done this in a while and completely forgot. Make sure everything on the inside is bone dry. I give it a wipe with a cotton bud and a microfiber towel, and then I either use a hairdryer to dry the rest of it or just leave it for a couple of hours. In this instance, I left it for a couple of hours because I'm also renovating a house. So I gave all of the buttons a really nice clean with some isopropyl alcohol, removed any of the oxidation on the rubber membranes. This one was actually broken, so I had to rummage around and grab another one, which was incredibly dirty, but these things come up looking really nice with a bit of cleaning. This Game Boy is going to last now for many, many, many years to come into the future. You can see that silicon membrane there is slightly different to the normal ones if you're astute and you've watched a few of these videos. That is actually an indication that this one is a much earlier model, which is really, really interesting because the serial number on the chip was actually reminiscent of something slightly later, I think 1994. So I think this might have been a bit of a bodge job, which might explain why one half of the shell was slightly yellower than the back half. I reckon this has been a bit of a Frankensteined Game Boy. I tried to use some polywatch on the screen lens to remove some of the scratches. This works really well on acrylic crystals on watches, but it didn't really work very well in this instance. So I'm going to give him a glass screen lens as well, just to sort of make it look a lot newer and nicer. After that, we can pretty much start reassembling the Game Boy. We still obviously need to do a couple of repairs, but I like to just get the stuff off of my desk and clear some space. Honestly, the tweezers are just for the camera to make it look more professional. It's incredibly fiddly trying to use tweezers. Then we can go ahead and screw the shield down again. Sometimes I forget to do this and then have to take the whole thing apart again. And we can put the rear motherboard into the shell. And don't forget the power slider. Then I'm going to take my soldering iron and we need to sort out the speaker problem. So I'm going to remove the speaker first from the previous motherboard. I'm going to use a little bit of flux there on the solder joints and then go ahead and hold my soldering iron against the solder blob, and that's going to release that. And then I'll thread those wires through the holes into the new motherboard, which is annoyingly out of focus. And then we can give that speaker a try and just make sure that the speaker doesn't actually work. We needed those little small wires anyway. I added a bit more flux and a bit more solder as well, just to help that little joint there. And then make sure you clean off all of the flux with some isopropyl alcohol. Now, if this doesn't work, I've got another speaker to try, but let's have a look. Now, not only does the speaker not work, but the screen now has vertical lines. So we're going to have to remove this speaker and solder in a new one, and then fix the screen. Now, this is just one I had in my parts bin, so I've also got no idea if this one works either. I should really try and stock up on some components. Happy days. That is one problem resolved. Now it's time to turn our attention to that screen. Now we're going to attempt to do what was attempted on the old screen. Unfortunately, the ribbon cable got really badly burnt, but the trick is to not hold the soldering iron down on the ribbon cable for long. Sort of just float it around very lightly. It does take a bit of practice, but eventually you start seeing the lines disappearing, and you can see that the small sticker residue isn't burning, and that's because I'm holding it very, very lightly, and I've ever so slightly reduced the temperature on my soldering iron to about 250 degrees, and that is going to fix the screen, as you can see. So it does take a bit of practice. Props to the person who had a go on the previous screen, but yeah, definitely need to be a lot more careful. It kind of looks like they maybe used a heat gun as opposed to a soldering iron, because it was just so badly destroyed. I have no idea how that's possible. After that though, we're good to start reassembling the rest of the Game Boy. Now there's so many screws to put back in, so an electric screwdriver does make a really good job of putting those back in. I'll leave a link to that in the description if you want to buy one. I'm going to give the ribbon cable a small clean with some isopropyl alcohol and pop that back into the socket, and we're pretty much done. This Game Boy is definitely not perfect. You can see that the shell is ever so slightly still yellow, but I'm pretty happy with it, and I really hope he is going to be too. And there we have it, a perfectly working Game Boy. Now, I attempted to super glue the old screen lens back on first. I think the super glue had gone past its use date because it just didn't work, unfortunately. But it's never really good practice to super glue screen lenses down anyway, because sometimes they can fog up the plastic. So I ended up actually removing this and fitting a glass screen lens down, which is just going to make it look in better condition anyway. And there we have it. Now let's have a quick look at fixing his Pokemon Blue cartridge. But this is why I know that the chips are just corrupted, so there's pretty much no point in trying to do anything to this, because these games are bought on eBay now. They're nothing special. It's an aftermarket game, really cheap to replace, and they have a pretty short lifespan anyway because the components used are just really inexpensive. So I wouldn't recommend them. And I'm not going to bother trying to fix this one. I'm just going to give him my copy of Pokemon Blue as a little present. So there we go. I've fixed Eric's Game Boy. I've restored it and repaired the faulty screen and the speaker, and it works and sounds great now. I'm really pleased with how it's turned out. Eric, I really hope you like it, buddy. Yeah, it's going to include Pokemon Blue, as I said. The shell isn't perfect. It's still ever so slightly yellowed. But honestly, I actually prefer a little bit of patina to the Game Boy anyway, and then it makes you less worried about playing it. So hopefully you agree, and hopefully you really like it. This thing is going to last now for many years into the future. And yeah, it's just absolutely beautiful. To Eric, enjoy from Elliot. There we have it. And I'll also probably put the date as well that I fixed it, which was the 12th. There we have it. I hope you enjoy this, Eric. I'm going to send this back out to you very soon. I know I said at the start, don't send these to me to fix. It depends on what the fix is and what needs doing. I just don't really have the time to fix everybody's stuff, although I would love to. I'm still in the trenches of fixing my house up. So yeah, really hope you understand. I hope you've all enjoyed this video. I know it's a little bit different to my normal ones, but it's about all I can do at this current moment in my life. And thank you so much for sticking with me until I can get back to my normal stuff. I'll see you all in the next video. Bye.